Deborah, how did you like that?
I love it. Creative. It's like blast off. Let's go make it happen.
Take action, yes. Are you fearful of flying in space?
It wouldn't be my first choice. I gotta say, I like being grounded, but I like the velocity. I like the speed. I like the let's execute and go make it happen. So I like that part of it. So I love it.
Yes, well, the way that space travel is going now, we need to start thinking about the possibility of that happening to us.
Absolutely.
However, today we're not going to talk about the fear of space travel, but the fear that some people have of appearing not in space but live online. And I believe that you have a PowerPoint that's going to drive our discussion about this very important topic of facing our fears when addressing a large audience, either from a live stage or online live.
Absolutely. I
So
do.
I
So
will
it
put
is an important topic. So definitely we can share some content and get going here right away. So happy to jump into this. So of course, the topic today is addressing your fears about going online live, which is critically important. And let's talk about those fears for a second, because people talk about speaking as being sort of the number one fear. It's really the fear when you drill down of embarrassment or being ridiculed or shamed in public and making mistakes. So the first part of this is really getting comfortable with the process of going online live. And sometimes we need a little bit of hand holding. Let's face it, this is part of the process. So I want to just talk about the elements that you need to be aware of, which are, you got to know what's stopping you. You have to know what it is that's holding you back from going live online. What is it that's holding you back from being visible and sharing your content and material, sharing your wisdom, sharing your story online? What is it about that you find uncomfortable or fearful in the process? And it requires that we give it a lot of thought. Listen, my husband and I have the joy of going to Paris, Moreno, and we actually got to see this most famous sculpture. And when we get off sort of the share mode here, I want people to notice, like in my over the left hand side of my shoulder here, of course, is a record player for the Think and Grow Rich, which was narrated by the very famous sort of Earl Nightingale, which was the radio host at one point. So this record, by the way, dates back to 1966, and of course, based on the famous sculpture, which is the Thinker. So we need to think about what are the things that are holding us back and what are stopping us in the process. And the big part of this is remaining calm. So if you're going to be going online live, you need to feel more at ease and you need to feel calm in the process. This is critically important. And so you actually have to take that fear, you got to transform it into action. That is what's going to be the definer that is going to make all the difference for you going online and being visible. And one of those elements, of course, is live streaming. So, Moreno, share with us, please. Give us the definition of what live streaming is now.
you know, before I dive into that question, Deborah, what people fear most is being judged. That is what holds people back. I imagine that's what's held me back as well, presenting to a live audience. The fear of being judged, just an inherent fear that we have. Will we be accepted? Will people criticize us? When it comes to live streaming, there are two tools, engines, ways of presenting. And under this live streaming umbrella falls live video and virtual live events. Those are the two main categories of live streaming.
Define actually live streaming so our audience knows what that is.
It's very easy to understand live streaming. it's let's see. I have a definition here, which is very good. Live streaming is the streaming of video in real time over the internet instead of being recorded and stored first. It is you streaming live content to many users at once, at one time.
And it is an important element. A lot of people forget about the live component, but real time, when people can see you, it's kind of like they're face to face in a room. And as a speaker, trainer, an expert in what it is you do for our audience members, having the perception of being live, real, in front of somebody, so that you can answer questions live, you can chat with them, you can acknowledge them, you can reply to questions in the chat, you can connect with your audience in a very personal and intimate way immediately. That is so critically important. Those are really important elements. And the big part of this, of course, Moreno, is like, what are sort of the current effective ways to actually appear online live, enabling us to present our story? And you shared a couple of them, which of course is the best ways to present our story online. And it is our story, by the way. It's not just fully educating, although that is part of the process, but people want to hear the story behind why you created your business, why you created the products and services, why this business is important to you. What's the purpose and the deep meaning behind what it is that you're doing? What drives you and motivates you? What are your clients experiencing? So the story becomes really important. So those best ways, which, Moreno, that you share in terms of being current, are live video, the virtual live events, and then short marketing videos that we can use. So give us some examples of what else that would look like, Moreno.
Virtual live events are somewhat more involved than live video. That's why I mentioned live video, because that is fairly easy to implement. An example is exactly what you and I are doing here now, Deborah. This is LinkedIn Live. And of course, live videos you also get on Facebook, YouTube, and other social media platforms. As you can see, it's easy to implement, to set up and actually do it. The virtual live events, another word for it is webinars, and those are more involved. There's more preparation. The host has far more control over the attendees and the actual presentation, the features that are added to the presentation, information that is presented is far more extensive than it is on live video. And an example of that, which everybody's familiar with, is Zoom. Most people now know Zoom very well, and that has been brought about by the pandemic, as we know. You mentioned short marketing videos. That is actually a spin-off, a bonus, something extra that one can easily take out, extract, get from live video and virtual live events. Why? Because live streaming events are recorded, and one can edit out sections of those recordings and make very powerful marketing videos from them easily and quickly, Deborah.
Yeah, no, those are perfect ways to be able to get online and get really visible in the marketplace. And some of the other examples that we could use the live streaming for, of course, is to really share an opinion, to share ideas. Because if you're going to set yourself apart and you're going to differentiate yourself, you really want to have an opinion about something. You have to have a stand for something, some ideas. Sharing the stories that we talked about, sharing new products and new services, what's new in your industry or what's new in your particular business. New service providers talking about what's new in the company or a brand new company starting out. Solutions to particular problems that clients might be having. And there's all sorts of opportunities that come into play as to how we can use that, even including the testimonial from clients becomes really important. So We know that there are sort of two universal laws of business, and people think, well, how do those universal laws, come about? Well, these two specifically are: we do business with people that we know, like, and trust. And you and I have shared that message many, many times on previous LinkedIn Lives here. And then, of course, to stand a chance of surviving in the race of the fittest, we have to differentiate ourselves from our competition. So that is a really big word that we talk about. How do we differentiate? So we have this conceived idea that we need to be better, that we need to be bigger, that we need to be different from the competition somehow. So what needs to actually happen there? Well, I'm thinking that it needs to be, you and I are like-minded, Moreno, on this, that we need to have what's called a differentiation strategy. So we need to be able to set ourselves apart from other people. And really, what would that look like? So, Moreno, give us some tips of what you think, how we would make ourselves different. What would be the process that would come into play there?
As has been mentioned before, to differentiate ourselves, we don't need to be better than other people simply because it's just too costly and time consuming and difficult and often unnecessary. The best way nowadays to differentiate ourselves, Deborah, is to be seen and heard in more places more often. Most people's products and services today are very high standard, maybe even better than ours. So it's difficult to compete on quality these days. For example, take a look at the motor industry. Most motor vehicles are of excellent quality. They need to be, otherwise they won't sell. People are just too demanding, and it's very easy to compare products today. So one way to be better than our competition is to promote ourselves in ways that people can see and hear us in more places more often. Deborah.
I agree. So here's something that's really important, because this is how Moreno and I differentiate ourselves. So I want you to understand something really important as an audience member here. Do not think that this, most effective way of marketing, which is showing yourself online, is not for you, because you are dead afraid of appearing live online or on camera. So listen, most people are fearful. And one thing that Moreno and I actually do well is helping you to get comfortable on camera while putting your best image forward. And we use mindset principles with this too. So the very latest in neuroscience research to be able to overcome those fears is part of the process, which differentiates ourselves. So it's actually a learned skill, and almost everybody can learn it. So after a few attempts, you actually start liking it, and we make you look good on camera, which is the really important part here. So to be seen and heard more often in more places than your competition really helps you in three critical ways. It increases your visibility, it increases your exposure, and it also increases your ability to influence other people. This is a primary principle for leadership. If you want to be seen as a leader in your industry, you have to be visible. You have to increase your exposure in the online world, and you also have to have the ability and the desire to want to influence people. And so these elements become critically important. So, Moreno, share a little bit more about each of these perspectives of visibility, exposure, and influence from your point of view.
Sure. Before jumping to that, there's a comment that we have here from Ebinario. Interesting. He says, fear stops me getting in front of many people he can't see. So he doesn't like the thought that probably he's speaking to a camera. He's not really speaking to people. He doesn't see anyone.
Yeah.
An interesting point of view.
It is a point of view. But that's the key, is that we get stopped from doing what it is that we really want to do ultimately, or to get the results that we really want to do. These are the things that are slowing us down, standing in our way, or flat out stopping us. And so if we don't get a handle on what those things are, then we actually miss out on having all the success and visibility that we're wanting, we miss out on creating the abundance, and we miss out on giving great value to our audience members, which they want their problems solved. We are the solution to solving people's problems. You, the audience members, you are the solution to solving your clients' problems. So you have to get visible. You have to be in agreement with being online, exposing yourself visually, and to be able to influence other people with your message, with your story, becomes critically important. So what other things would you like to share on this point, Moreno?
Yeah, about these three items: visibility, exposure, and influence. Visibility is linked to knowing. If you want people to get to know you, then you need to be visible. If no one sees you, you're an unknown. No one knows you. So it's as simple as that. We need to appear in front of people, whether we like it or not. It's not a choice. Well, actually, it is a choice. We always have a choice. Exposure. Exposure is associated with liking. When you see a person, get to know a person the first time, you may or may not like this person. Why not? Because we need to see and hear more from this person over time. It's like a camera, the exposure of a camera, that when the shutter shuts too quickly, not enough light enters to create a visible image. We need to allow the shutter open long enough for enough light to get in to create an image. And it's the same with exposure for people when appearing. A person needs to appear not once, but many times, and not briefly, but preferably for a longer time. And that way, people get to know us. And as for influence, that is linked directly to trust. Once you are able to influence people's way of thinking, then that is when people start trusting you. Deborah, when someone speaks to you and explain things that are of interest to you, and you can see that they persuade you, that they are influencing you, and also you see that they influence other people that you know towards solving problems, getting to solutions, that is when we develop trust in these people.
Yeah, those are all really great points, Moreno. And, really what comes to mind from the exposure point of view, from the idea of people liking you, is you got to be vulnerable and you have to be authentic. This is where we share our stories and really not only our successes, but our failures too, and then how we've overcome those. So that people see that we're real, that we make mistakes, that we have fears or concerns like anybody else, but that we're moving forward and we're getting really, a lot of results in the process. And I think that's what makes the real difference here. That becomes important. Those are really good points. So let's talk about today's ways, which are the current ways right now that are the most popular to marketing success. So there are a number of points here. Number one is creating video. So what is it about video that becomes really important here, Moreno, that we need to be aware of?
The advantage of video, Deborah, is that you create it once and then you post it, and then it's working for you 24/7 every day of the year. That's the beauty of it. And people can consume it in their own time from the comfort of their home or office, maybe even when they're on holiday. So video is a great way. It's the best way to get known. That's the
it's like content consistently over a long period of time, right? So we need to kind of develop it and be consistent and do it over a longer period of time.
Yes. And the idea of creating it consistently is because It's because people are hungry for things that are new. And that is why we need to create video consistently, because things change, not only for us, but for our audience as well. We need to adapt as everything is changing. We need to create fresh video. That is the reason why we need to create video consistently. And when we know the methodology, the easy and quick way of creating video, then we know that we can create video consistently over a long period of time without too much effort on our part.
Right. So, and of course, the second point being posting consistently. So share us a little bit about what's important about that and what we need to be focused on.
Not everybody is in one place at the same time. People are all over the place at the different times. That's why we need to be posting consistently over a long period of time, so that we increase the probability that our target audience get the opportunity to see what we post. That is the benefit of posting consistently. And this is marketing. Marketing is a long journey. It takes time. We need to be patient. We need to take baby steps consistently over a long period of time. So if we post videos consistently, different videos, then people get to know us better over time. It's about getting to know us, liking us, and eventually trusting us. It's a process. We need to be patient, and we need to do it all the time, piece by piece. We don't get marketing results immediately overnight.
Yeah, the consistency and sometimes patience is a huge virtue that needs to be remembered in this process. So one of the things that you shared that becomes, really sort of top of mind here is that you're saying, not all your audience kind of hangs out in one place. So two factors come to mind here. Number one, you got to get really clear on your tribe and who your audience is and who you're actually serving. And some people have more than one niche market or target market that they focus on. But the idea is having the awareness of where do they hang out? Where are they most visible online, and how do you tap in and connect with them? Because there's process behind that and quite a bit of detail behind that. The third point, of course, is engaging your audience. And there's a lot of elements that take place in that. And then, of course, the fourth is creating and growing your own community. So, Marino, give us some examples of how we could create community.
The business world is very competitive. And one of the best ways to run a business, a successful business, is to create a community where our community get to know us well and we get to know our community well. That way we are best able to serve their needs, solve their problems, give them what they want. And communities online we find on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, for example, they have groups. On the other social media platforms, they have groups as well, where like-minded people gather and discuss issues of common interest, where they help one another. And creating these communities is very powerful, Deborah, because everyone is like-minded and people tend to know one another. They're familiar with one another. They like one another. And of course, they trust one another. Can you imagine the kind of progress that can be made when people trust one another, where time is not wasted sizing one another out, Deborah?
Yeah, that is the really big factor here is when we associate with like-minded people. I mean, it kind of takes me back to the old adage of your environment and surrounding yourself with the 5 people that are going to support you, encourage you. We can ask the question, who are those 5 people we spend the most time with? But if we want to go in a certain direction, we want to achieve a certain goal, being around the like-minded people that are very forward-thinking, that are very progressive in what it is that they do, and are willing to offer great value and great support and great encouragement without the sabotage, that becomes really important in the process. So knowing that you've got trustworthy people that have high integrity, high character, and being around people that are really into the self-growth, the development, the progress of business, and supporting and uplifting other people is tremendously important. So those are factors that are really, really important. Thank you for sharing, Moreno. The last factor, of course, is tracking your progress, which is, having an editorial calendar, having a very specific calendar that you want to execute online. So, Moreno, tell us a little bit about that.
Deborah, this is super important, and I'm sure you can appreciate that, because this essentially is a plan, having a plan. We need a plan to guide us, a plan that tells us where we are, where we want to go, and how we're going to get there. In marketing, it's called an editorial calendar, and it lists all the activities that need to be completed to allow us to make the progress needed to achieve our goal. And it forces us to think. And as you say in your slide there, it tracks our progress. We are able to visually see where we are at, what needs to be done, what has been done. And when we see the big picture, it also gives us a sense of confidence that we know where we are going, where we started, the kind of progress that we're making, and what needs to be done. We have the big picture. And when we have the big picture, Deborah, we are not confused. When we don't have the picture, that is when we are confused. So that's the beauty of having a plan.
Yeah, and I love how you have spelled out those elements that become very important in the editorial calendar. And we find that a lot of people that do sort of social media calendars or postings, they kind of miss, well, they do miss a lot of those elements that become really important. So thank you for sharing that, because that is part of the process that makes the online streaming, the online videos really critically important. So let's talk a little bit about this question, which is, who do you want to be? So you, as the audience members, when you're defining your business and how you want to show up as a leader in your business, this becomes a very important question to answer, to ponder, to think about. Who do you want to be? And what comes from that essentially is you are who you decide you want to become. And this ultimately comes down to a decision and understanding your thought process, understanding that we control our thoughts, and our thoughts define who we are, who we become, our actions and our behaviors behind that. And so what happens is you really now have to believe in the person that you want to become. So you're getting clear on who you want to become, then you have to believe that there's this capability that you can move forward towards becoming that type of person, or becoming that type of business owner, or having this type of business and contributing in a really valuable way. And then what happens is this desire, and what's required now at this point is that you actually be the best version of you. Life demands that. If you want the results that you are hoping for when you get online live, when you get visible, when you stand out there as a speaker or as an expert in your field, you now are required to be the best version of you, to show up powerfully. And so this is one of the things that can happen to us, Moreno, is that we can end up having self-sabotage. And one of the things that holds us back here is what we call the avoider, or the person that procrastinates. They bury their head in their sand, or they pull the bag over their head, and they're focusing on the positive and the pleasant in a very extreme way. Hey, I really want to do this. It'll be great to get online. It'll be great to be visible. It'll be great to speak. But then they avoid the difficult, or what is perceived to be difficult and unpleasant tasks and conflicts. So they don't want to get out there, and they're fighting with their own thoughts in their head. Like, what do I say? How do I get my message across? What is it that I do? And this is a big factor that holds a lot of people back from being visible online. So the key element, which is all part of this process, is conquering your fears and moving forward on this part. And so by conquering your fears, you're actually very much focused on boosting your confidence, and you're moving in the direction consistently. You're consistently doing the things that boost your confidence. And so how we actually strengthen the mindset and reach our prosperity potential, which is all the abundance that we're wanting, is these factors. We release the mental and emotional obstacles. We increase the self-confidence and the self-worth. We eliminate fear, guilt, and shame. We eliminate self-doubt. We change obstacles into gifts and opportunities. And then we enjoy a life of peace and happiness because we're absolutely fulfilled in sharing our message. So again, this comes right back to transforming the fears into action. And that is because you, my audience members, my loving audience members, you deserve what action will bring to you, which is all the benefits. So you simply have to decide, commit, and then you succeed in the process. So what we want you to be aware of is what's coming up for us. And we really want to share something important to you. The link is going to be in the chat. And we want you to join us for our training event, which is You Now Online Live. And this is Tuesday, March 29th at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Moreno and I would be absolutely delighted to have you part of the audience.
Deborah, the link is in the comment section.
So audience members, register, go to the link in the chat, register. It's a completely free event. We look forward to sharing some really amazing content with you. We are so delighted that you could join us here on this LinkedIn Live. We hope you got some great tips and great value out of it. Thank you, Moreno. Always a pleasure to be doing these with you.
Thank you, Deborah. And I hope to see everyone at the webinar next week.